Let's take a look at Adobe InDesign for the first time. And what I want to do in this section is get you up and running as quickly as possible by showing you what I think are the most important things to know for anybody just starting out. And we're going to do that by creating a simple ebook. Actually, it's probably more like a white paper. It'll be about a 10 to 15 page document once it's all said and done. So let's go ahead and dive in by clicking on the New button here to open up our new document dialog box. And what we're going to do now is change the intent from print by clicking on this drop down button and change it to digital publishing. With that set, it's going to default to the page size as an iPad size, but if we click on this drop down, you can see we do have some other device presets available if you were wanting to make something different. I'm going to click on this portrait thumbnail right here to change my orientation of the document. And then on the margins down here, I'll click on the little link button so I can set custom sizes for each side. So for the top, let's put it at 150 pixels, and that'll give me enough room to drop in the logo on every page since this will be a branded white paper. On the bottom left and right, we'll put it at 75 pixels. So I'll put in 75 pix, hit Command A to highlight that, Command C to copy. Hit Tab a couple times, Command V, hit Tab one more time, and Command V again to paste those values. If you're on a PC, it's Control C and Control V. We'll click OK, and now we've got our brand new document set up. So before we go any further, let's go ahead and save this. So File, Save, and I've got a folder on my desktop where I've got all of the assets for this project. In my Design Files folder, in my InDesign folder, I'll go ahead and save this document as eBook, and I'll click Save. Alright, so let's go ahead and dive in to the workspace and start off with the first things I want to show you. So let's make sure we're looking at the same screen. On the top right, click on that drop down, make sure you see the advanced workspace. If you don't, go ahead and click on that now and then hit Reset Advanced so we see the same thing. And the first thing I want to bring your attention to is the pages. So I'll click on this Pages flyout menu, and right now we only have one page in our document, and we also have one master. So what the master is, it's like a master template. Whatever we put on this one master will be applied to however many pages refer to that master. So let's go ahead and start by double clicking on that A master, and what I want to put in right now is just simple information at the footer and the page numbers. So I'll click and drag with my text tool by hitting the letter T and then clicking and dragging, and we'll just put in the simple copyright information. So copyright 2016 period, all rights reserved. And then what I'm going to do is zoom in a little bit with that Command spacebar shortcut. I'll click once on this text box, hold down Alt, click and drag a copy to the right here. And now with this text box selected, I'm going to hit the letter T to change my options bar at the top to my text options and align this to the right. So now this will line up to the right side. I'll triple click in here, and instead of having this text we just made, what I want to put in there is some special type right here. If we go to Type, Insert Special Character, to Markers, we can set our current page number. Now what this is going to do is just put the letter A in on our master page. It's just a filler, but if we click on page 1, we can see that it actually changes to whatever page this is. And if I have a couple more pages, you can see that each page has the coordinating page number. So where master pages really come in handy are if you have repeating elements that need to be applied to multiple pages. So here's a way to make this more obvious. I'll just quickly draw a big rectangle here using my rectangle tool on the master page, and now these thumbnails along the right reflect that each page now has that same rectangle applied. So you can have multiple masters, maybe for each section of your book where you have different colors for the opening section, or maybe different section markers or whatever you wanted to do, and that's a great way to do the work once in one spot, and then if you ever need to change it, you can change it there, and that change will be applied to all the subsequent pages. So I'm going to come back to this A master document. I'll click on that rectangle and I'll just delete it for now. I'll go ahead and hit save, and this is probably a good spot to pause, and in the next lesson what we're going to do is actually bring in the assets for this document. So we'll start gathering the text and the photos and the logos we need to finish. Let's start bringing assets into our InDesign file. First of all, what I'm going to do is come over to these pages here and delete those couple extra pages I made. I'll hit the trash can And I'll hit the trash can one more time to delete those couple pages. And now on this first page, what I want to do is bring in our text first. So I'll come up here to File. I'll come down to Place, or Command D as my shortcut. And then you can place any asset or any document. So that could be a Word doc in this case, or a logo file, or a photo. And I'll click Open. And what it'll do is it'll load my cursor with that asset. So with this loaded, I can do a couple things. I can click and drag, which brings in most of my text. But you'll notice that I do have this little red box with a plus icon, meaning that there's some text that's not falling within that text box. It's overset text. And I can try and drag these handles to make more of it fit, but maybe I still need more space. So what I can do is click on that icon, and what it's going to do is load my cursor again so I can draw another text box, and it's going to link from the bottom of the first to the top of the next. So as I scale this size, it's going to reflow dynamically into the next text box. And maybe I still need even more room, so I could click on that and drag yet another text box. Probably a faster way to work, though, depending on where you're at in your project, would be simply to click on the top left border of your margin. I'll hold down Shift key, and you'll notice my icon changes to that wave form, meaning it's going to fill these margins, but it's also going to create more pages, however many it takes to fill the document and to not crop anything off or have overset text. So you'll notice as I did that, it went ahead and automatically created 2 more pages. Alright, so we've got our text in here. I'm just going to hit Command S real quick to make sure I save. And the next thing I want to bring in is a logo to the top of every page. So you might think off the bat to just drag your logo right into the top of this page, which would be fine. But again, we talked about this in the last video, where now that logo is only on page 1. It's not on page 2 or 3, and I want it on every page. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this, hit Command X to copy it to my clipboard and cut it. Come over to my A master, and I'll double click here, and then hit Command V to paste it. I'll drag it up into place. Right about there looks good. I hit the letter E to get my free transform tool and scale this up just a touch. And there we go. Now that logo will be on every page of my document. Now I want to quickly take a look at another powerful feature of InDesign, and that's paragraph styles. So again, making sure you're in the advanced workspace, come all the way down towards the bottom and click on paragraph styles. Currently, we have a couple that came in with that Word doc that we created, but I want to go ahead and start styling my text. So a good rule of thumb is any text you set for reading, you probably want to have about 12 words across for optimum reading. It's just a number I heard somewhere. I don't know if it's true or false, but I found that that makes a pretty good rule of thumb. So right now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, about 20 words. So we need to make our text a little bit bigger to make it fall within that ideal reading range. So I'm just going to highlight some of this paragraph text here. And let's just kind of bump this up a little bit more. Let's try 14 point. That looks pretty good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So it's still a little bit, it could be a touch bigger. Let's go to 15 point and we'll call that good. Now my leading needs to be adjusted. It looks like the words are just bumping right into each other. So I'm going to highlight again, and I'm going to adjust my leading till I feel like it's easily read, more legible there. Okay, great. So now what I want to do is actually create a paragraph style out of this. And one last thing here. So I'll just highlight any of this text, and we'll click on this new icon in the paragraph styles window. It's going to create a brand new paragraph style for me. I'll double click on that, and I can name this anything I want. So let's just call this body. This will be our body text. I'll make sure my preview tab is selected. And now I can come through and set a lot more options for this text. So for example, maybe instead of Georgia, we want to make this Helvetica. Set it to regular. We can adjust a lot more settings here, but for right now that looks okay. And we've got some indents and settings. One thing that I usually go through and change is I will make sure that my hyphenation is set to none. So I'll uncheck that right there. And then our character color down here might be another option you might want to update as far as what color you're using for the font. I'll go ahead and click OK right now, and we can see that this chunk of text has the body style set to it. So what I'm going to do is click once in this and hit Command A to highlight everything across every page that we brought in. And I'm going to click on this body style now to apply that to everything. Now you see we get this little plus sign. And what that means is we've got our body style plus a few other. So what we want to do is go ahead and override that setting right now. I'll do that by Alt clicking on this icon right here to clear those overrides. And now you see that plus sign goes away, and now truly every piece of text has that applied to it. Now where this comes in really handy is, let's say you have a bunch of different paragraphs set. You can come in after the fact, click on this style, and anything that has that style applied to it will be changed if you ever change your mind. So for example, character color, if we want it to be blue, I click on that once, and now all that text that had the paragraph style applied to it will be blue. Now, of course, I don't want it to be blue text. It looks terrible, so I'll make it black. I'll click OK. And now the next text I want to format will be my headings. So I'm going to click in here, grab this introduction title, and I'll create a new paragraph style by clicking on this new paragraph icon. We get paragraph style 1. I'll double click on here, and I'm just going to call this H1. That'll be my heading tag. And we will change the character formats from Helvetica to a font called Freshman. And I'm going to change the case to all caps. I'm happy with the leading for now. I'm going to change my tracking. I'm going to track it out just a touch. And then I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So now what I can do is come through and find all the titles. We'll click once in there. I don't even have to highlight the whole thing. It just sees this whole thing as a paragraph. I'll click on H1 to set that. And I see I've got an extra space between here, so I'll just go ahead and delete that real quick to bring that together. I'll find my next title. I'll click once in there, apply the H1 tag. And again, I'll kind of remove these extra spaces between here. And I still have some overset text now. So I'll come back to my pages. And I see that I've only got 3 pages, but now because of the font changes, we have some overset text. So I'll click once on this little plus sign. I'm going to add a new page starting on page 4. I'll come up to the top here and I'll hold down Shift to change to my reflow icon and click. So now it'll take the rest of that text that was overset and it'll flow through until it has enough pages. So now I currently have 6 pages in my document. Now's a good time to hit Command S to save, and let's finish applying those title tags to my other sections. So I'll scroll down and find that last heading here, and I'll come over to my paragraph styles window and apply that H1 tag, remove my extra paragraph, and now we're good there. So we have our text in here, we have some basic paragraph styles set, we have automatic page numbering turned on, and a logo for every page. So now what we want to do is bring in new photos for each section. So I'll jump back to my pages window, and let's go ahead and start by adding a cover. So I'll click up here on page 1, and I will click once on the new icon down here to get a new page right below that page 1. I'll click and drag to bring that in front. So now I've got a brand new page in front without any text on it. Let's go ahead and remove this master page. Currently it's set to the A master page. We'll click on this None icon and drag down to that first page. So now we have no elements on this page whatsoever. I can come over to my Creative Cloud libraries, and I already have some photos that I've brought in specific to this project. So I'll just drag and drop this image right over to this cover page, and you'll notice I get the loaded cursor just like I did with my text. Now if I click once, it's going to paste this at full size for the image, and you'll see that it's not quite full screen, but that's because we haven't purchased it yet, so it's actually just a small sample file. I'll hit Command Z. My loaded cursor icon again, I'll zoom in, and I can also click and drag to make that image as big as I want right out of the gate. I'll hit Command Z one more time, and what I want to do is kind of a hybrid of both. I'm going to click once to get it as big as it can be, and then I'm going to drag it in place, hit the letter E to get my free transform tool over here, and I'm just going to scale this up until it fills in the entire page. Now usually what I would do on a cover like this is I would probably design it in Photoshop, and that's something where again you can place anything in InDesign. So I would use Photoshop because I'm more comfortable with some of its design resources to create a more compelling cover, and then I would place that Photoshop file right in here like we did this image. But in this case I want to show you how to work mostly in InDesign, so we're going to go ahead and just place this image, And then with my move tool selected, not my free transform tool, I can actually grab these handles and it will mask instead of actually scaling that image down. So I can just grab these, drag it into place, and now we have an image for our cover. I'm going to go ahead and save here, and then what we're going to do in the next video is push the design just a little bit further and then show you how to export this PDF. Let's go ahead and add a few more finishing touches to this document, and then we'll go ahead and license these images and then send our document to PDF. So let's go ahead and click over here on the Creative Cloud Libraries, and you can see I do have some more images to add for sections here. But if I add a new section, I don't want it to have this logo over the top. So what we'll do is click on Pages, and I'll create a new master page here. I'll right click on this A master and I'll duplicate master spread A master, and that way my guides come along and everything else here if I wanted to keep it. But I don't want to keep the logo, so I'll go ahead and click once on here to delete that logo image. And then I'm going to go ahead and leave these copyright and page number elements down here, simply because my new sections are only going to have a photo at the top, but then it'll continue on with the text. So I want to go ahead and keep those elements down there. Now the other thing I want to change is the size of my margin at the top. So what I'll do is I'll come to Layout, we'll go to Margins and Columns, and that top margin, I think I'm going to double or triple it. So let's try 300 pixels and see what that looks like. I'm going to go ahead and do maybe 500 pixels instead, and that looks about right. So I'll go ahead and click OK, and now my margin on my B master pages starts about 500 pixels down. So I'll have roughly about 2 paragraphs of text spaced down here with a large image across the top. What I'm going to do is also drag down a guide, and I'll bring it down to about maybe 400 pixels or so. And that way I've got plenty of space for a photo and then plenty of breathing room between the photo and where the paragraph starts. So now what I'll do is I'll come back to page 2, I'll double click there, and this is the beginning of this section. So what I want to do is go ahead and apply my B master to this page. So I'll click and drag from that icon from the B master page over page 2 and let go. And now you'll see my logo goes away and also my margin moved down considerably. So I'll click once on this text box with my move tool. I'll grab this handle and I'll just scale it down so that way it starts within that guide, and then I can see that I have my ruler across the page too. So let's go ahead and bring over another photo for this first section. And since this talks about fitness beginning and ending in the kitchen, we'll go ahead and grab my kitchen photo. I'll drag and drop, getting my loaded cursor, and I'm going to hover over the top left of the document till my arrow turns white. Then I'll click and drag towards the left until I fill the screen, and you can see that I come down much further than I wanted to. So I'll go ahead and just drag up with that handle with my move tool, and it's going to mask. Now if I needed to rearrange where that mask happens, I can click on this circle right here in the middle, and it's going to move my photo but keep the mask intact. Alright, so now what I want to do is go ahead and add the other section photos. So I'm going to come back to my pages and I'm going to scroll down, and one thing to keep in mind is because we lost a considerable amount of text space up here, as we move things down, we're going to have overset text at the end of our document again. So we'll have to keep that in mind as we work. I'm going to go ahead and jump to this next section here, and you see that it actually falls right in the middle of this page. So what I want to do is come to my paragraph style. I'll click on my H1, and I'm going to change the paragraph rules, specifically the keep options. So if I click on this option here, and I can choose to start the paragraph on the next page. So this paragraph is always going to start at the top of the next blank page instead of starting in the middle. I'll click OK, and now we can see that any new section starts fresh at the beginning of a new page. Now I've got my title in this text box here, so I'm going to highlight it, hit Command X to cut it, hit the delete key once, a couple times here, and that brings that first heading where it should belong. And that title, I'm just going to click and drag on my cover page and hit Command V to paste it, and I'll come back to that later. So let's go back down our document here, and you can see that we have a considerable amount of blank space down here. And then our new document starts fresh on this page. So I'll come back to my pages, and we're on page 4, and I'll apply that B master to page 4, and I'll resize this down, and I'll grab another image here. So for healthy food choices, we'll go ahead and grab one of these images and drag it over. Doing the same thing, we're going to come to the top left, click and drag all the way to the right, hit the letter V to get my move tool, and we're going to resize this until it lines up with our guides here. And there we have a brand new section heading for section 1 here. So let's just kind of quickly recap what this is looking like. It looks pretty good. We do have a lot of space here that we can fill if we're trying to keep each section starting fresh like this. Alright, so that looks good, and let's go ahead and create our third section. So what I'm going to do is where this falls on section 2, this is page 6 currently, I'll drag down my B master again. We'll scale this text down so it's at the top of our margins, and we'll bring over one more image here from our library. Click and drag, and there we go. I'm just going to resize this mask one more time. So now we've got pretty even, consistent branding all across the document. It's a good time to save, so I hit Command S to save this. And now we've got some overset text. So what I'll do is jump back to my pages here. We're on page 7. I'll add a new page at the bottom. Come back to page 7. Click on that little plus sign here. Come over to page 8. And then shift click on that margin to reflow the rest of our text. We have our action steps here at the end of the document. We'll add one more photo here, so I'm going to drag over that B master to remove the logo and to change our guides here so we have plenty of space for that image. We'll grab one more image here. And then just change that mask to fall in line with our guide. Alright, so let's just do a quick recap here. We've got all of our text in place. We have our section set up. And now we just need to create that cover image, that title here, and then purchase those photos. Let's go ahead and do that real quick, and then we can wrap this up. So what I'm going to do is triple click in here to highlight all of that text, Command Shift and the period key to just do the shortcut to make it bigger. I don't need the word title, I just want the word Food and Fitness 101. So I'll delete the word title. Command A to highlight all of that. I'm going to click up here to change my font color to paper, so it'll be white essentially. So now I've got that set to white. If I hit the letter W, I can change my view to hide all of my guides to see how this is looking. I'll hit the letter W again to bring it back. The other thing you'll notice is this looks kind of terrible as far as this image. It looks really grainy. Part of that is this is just a sample, but the other part of it is if we come up here to View, we can change our display performance to high quality display. And almost always I'll work with my high quality display turned on. This is just a way to save your computer from having to work too hard if you've got a lot of images you're working with, or if maybe your computer isn't that fast and you notice that the performance isn't that great. But I typically work with high quality display turned on, and then you'll notice the image does get cleaned up quite a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and triple click in here, and we'll change this font to that freshman font. I'll click OK. And I'm going to make it much bigger, so I'm just going to keep hitting Command Shift and the period key to get the font much bigger, and I'm going to hit Command Alt and the down arrow to change my leading here. I'll click on the move tool, and you'll see that we've got overset text because it's too big now, so I'm just going to drag this text box larger to make it all fit. Triple click in here one more time and just kind of nudge the fonts into place. And last, let's just go ahead and click once, and I'll hit the letter E now to get my free transform tool, because I want to just scale this up just enough that it lands within both sides of my guides here, so it's balanced. And I'll drag this down here. I'll hit the W key one more time just to see how this looks without any guides on. Alright, so we're ready to purchase the images and then ship this off here. So let's go ahead and start by jumping over to our Creative Cloud Library section. I'm going to find this first image here for the cover. I'll right click on it and I'll click on License Image. And it's going to ask me, if I want to use one of my 50 licenses. So I'll click OK, and it's going to automatically start updating that image. Move it to the top, adds a blue check mark showing me that it is licensed. And once it's done syncing, this watermark will go away. Now let's go find those other images. We've got the image of the kitchen here. So I'll find that image. We'll right click, license image, and I'll hit OK. We'll come down to the next one right here of these foods, right click, license image. I'll hit OK. And this guy, click on that once, right click, license image, and I'll hit OK. And last but not least, we've got this blue image here. I'll right click, license image, and I'll click OK up here. Now once all those licenses finally sync up here, you can see the watermarks will go away. My cover looks good now. If I scroll down, some of them are still syncing with the cloud. But once they're all done, I can go ahead and export this file. So I'm just going to do one more pass at it and just kind of look at things. And one thing you'll notice here, I do have some overset text, but I'm going to leave this here for just a second. I'm going to come up here to File, Export, and I'm going to save this in that folder on my desktop under File Sent. We'll put this in my Finals folder. And I'm going to change the format from Adobe PDF Print to Adobe PDF Interactive. And then I'll go ahead and click on Save. So here we have some different options we can work through. Right now I've just got it set to pages, which is fine. Most of these settings come up by default, will be just fine, but you can look over them if you want. I tend to leave my resolution at 150 pixels per inch, even though screen resolution is technically 72. This way I find that it has better images. If somebody wants to zoom in, the images will still look clear and crisp. So I'll click OK. And here's the reason why I didn't update that text. I wanted to show you, if you do have overset text, it will tell you where the errors are. So I'll click OK. And I'll click OK one more time, and I'll scroll all the way to the bottom of this document. We'll jump back to my pages here. I'll add a new page, come back to page 8, click once on that text box with overset text, click on that plus sign, come back to page 9, and then make sure I've got my A master applied to that page 9, and then shift click with that loaded cursor to load the rest of the text there. Alright, we should be in good shape, so let's go ahead and export this again. I'm just going to hit Command E this time to get my export box. I'm going to stick it in that Finals folder, making sure my format is still selected as interactive and not print, since this is for screen. I'll go ahead and hit Save. All these options are good. We'll hit OK, and it's going to generate our PDF and export each page. Once it's all said and done, because this is intended for digital use, it's going to try and take this full screen. You can hit yes or no, whatever you want, but you can see here that we've got our document all done, and it takes over full screen beautifully. And from here we can see we have all of our sections and our images without watermarks, and we're good to go. To wrap this section up, we should probably talk about how to package all of these assets once it's all done. So what I'm going to do real quick, I'll hit the escape key to get out of full screen mode here. I'll go ahead and close that window. We'll jump back into InDesign, and this time instead of going to File, Export, we're going to go all the way down to Package here. And this will scrape together all of the fonts and any linked graphics that we used for this project. I'll go ahead and hit the word Package here. And then I'll stick the final folder inside of that Finals folder. So right now it's going to save a folder called eBook folder. And in that folder it's going to stick our fonts, any linked graphics, so all those images we bought from the Creative Cloud, as well as the logo we used. It's going to update all of those links, so instead of being linked to the cloud, they'll be linked directly to a folder inside of this eBook folder. It's going to include fonts, links, and the IDML format, which will be a format you can use to open this in older versions of InDesign, as well as a PDF file that you could share here. So I'll go ahead and hit the word package down here, and it's going to go ahead and create our InDesign package. Once it's all done, I can jump over into Finder, and I can find that eBook folder. And inside of there, we have our document fonts that were used. We have our IDML format, which again is a way to open this in an older version of InDesign. We have our new InDesign file, which is an editable version with updated links that refer back to these links here in this folder, where we have all those images and all of the assets we need to share the instructions on how to print this, and everything should be good to go. So that's it. That is your introductory course on InDesign. I hope you learned a ton, and at the same time, keep in mind there is a ton left to learn with InDesign. It's a super powerful tool, so I highly encourage you to poke around and see what else you can do.